Shalom, brothers and sisters. So this video is going to be a bit longer than usual, but we'll dive into it because it's important that we discuss and I give you my opinions on this one so that you can just get the whole picture here that's been brewing over the last few days since Netanyahu's visit to Trump as the first world leader to see him in the White House. EU rejects Trump's post-war plan, says Gaza is an integral part of a Palestinian state. A number of European governments, including Germany, France, Britain, and Spain, voiced strong opposition. The displacement of the Palestinian civilian population from Gaza would not only be unacceptable and a violation of international law, said German Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock, but it would lead to new suffering and new hatred. So beginning there, you have the EU's opinion and thought process behind Trump's plan that he presented in that press conference next to Netanyahu. So I've said before, I'm not going to cover everything Trump's doing. He is doing a lot. I think he's had 4 years of planning in his little office and prepping everything and studying so that he's better equipped for round two, and with a whole bunch of things he was ready to come in doing immediately, hitting the ground running. And he's proven that over the last few weeks, and it's going to continue in that vein with much chaos and disruption and anger and frustration and changes sweeping across America and by definition then their influence sphere, which is the world. So we're seeing that. And by all means, you can go open a channel just covering Trump. You'll probably be through the roof with subscribers and views instantly because you'll never run out of content. That is literally how amped up and high that information is. I am not called to cover Trump, all right? But in instances like this, I am going to touch on it. I'm not going to touch on the smaller things and the sweeping changes being made, but things that touch Israel and things that affect biblical prophecy, I will touch on. Hence why we're talking about this plan that is pushed forward. What do I think about it? Where does it stand with the way things are supposed to go, with the word of God and prophecy and so on? So now we know the EU is completely against it. By now you've at least gone to YouTube and seen the statement yourself from Trump standing next to Netanyahu and making these statements. I do think by putting it the way he put it, we've got an expression, your foot in your mouth. He literally was just switching feet in his mouth at this stage and saying the wrong things. The idea is correct because there's a lot of reason behind it if pushed forward in a proper conversational way to not anger and freak everyone out to the wrong positions, because everyone's waiting to take an angle. So if it was me, if I was President Sholto of the United States of America, I would have said, look at these pictures, and I would have put them up on big 60-inch screens, both sides of the stage, of the rubble and chaos that is Gaza right now. With the war dragging this long, the nation has turned into pretty much worse than Damascus right now, and Damascus almost looks like a ruinous heap. Gaza is a ruinous heap, and not just a ruinous heap. Your home's gone, it's destroyed, it's a pile of bricks and pylons and metal rebars and things like that. It's dangerous, it's no place for a human being. Underneath that are tunnels, collapsed tunnels, non-collapsed tunnels, ordnance that has gone off, that hasn't gone off. It is a dangerous minefield rubbish dump. That is Gaza. It sounds horrible, but this is truth. Go look at pictures. Now, I would have presented those pictures and said, it is a humanitarian disaster. We cannot allow these people to suffer more by having to live in this dump. It's unsanitary, it's unsafe, etc., etc. Let us all work together, surrounding nations, and move them to a safe area that we can collectively, with our money that we have too much of and spend in the wrong places, build them an amazing place to live in peace and safety while we clean, make safe, and reconstruct Gaza. He could have left it there, and then they could assume, oh cool, and then they can later come back, blah blah blah. Everyone would have been happy, the right, the left, the whole lot. But we're just going to take it and own it. We're going to put them somewhere else, and we're going to rebuild this, and it's going to be like a Riviera and amazing. You've triggered everyone. And therein lies the problem. So there's multiple news stories around this, and let's touch on that. Netanyahu arrives in the US to redraw the Middle East map, strengthen security, and broaden the circle of peace. So let's just stop there. He arrived there to redraw the Middle East map. Now, Yeshua is going to redraw the Middle East map when he comes back for the 1,000-year reign. He's going to show mankind who doesn't understand geography from the Bible just how big Israel really is supposed to be in the eyes of God. And it will take large bites out of surrounding countries when you start looking at what God meant when he said Israel and described its borders and limits. So God will redraw that map. Netanyahu wants to strengthen security, peace and security, peace and safety, and broaden the circle of peace. Huge focus on peace and stability, a strengthening of existing peace agreements. One man can maybe come and strengthen that. Important issues including Gaza ceasefire extension and hostage release. Now, there's a lot of articles in Israel and America that will touch on the fact that Netanyahu actually wants to go back to war. The hostage families are really upset. He's fired the head of Mossad and Shin Bet and replaced them with people he trusts more. He would like to go back to doing what he's been doing, which is eliminate Hamas, take away their military capability, and end the war. But the families, rightfully so, want to see the plan that has been laid out completed so that all the hostages can be released, which I would say is a good thing. Let them all be released. Put trackers on all your prisoners you're releasing, and when they're all released, go and pick them all up again and finish this war once and for all and get it done. End Hamas like you set out to do in the first place. But first, let the hostages come out. Stick with the plan. That's what I would say. So I understand the frustration of the families. Netanyahu said, I believe working closely with President Trump, we can redraw the Middle East even further and better. I believe we can strengthen security, broaden the circle of peace, and achieve a remarkable era of peace through strength. Now, there's a lot of, I've seen this in faith circles and faith channels where they're saying, no, the world's going to be a better place. We're going to fix things. It's going to be a paradise. We're going back to like 2020. It's going to be incredible. We're going to take it back from the global elites and the New World Order, and we're going to reestablish life as it should be. No, you're not. Can't stop the tribulation train. Prophecy is screaming at you about the time of man and where we're at. No, you will not. Great ambition, not going to happen. Focus on saving souls, getting people's lives right with Jesus, because time is up. But the Antichrist will be focusing on the Middle East, peace, strengthening agreements with many, sorting out all of mankind's problems. And here they're speaking all these things and applying it to leadership on the world stage in preparation for the revealing of that man of peace. Peace. Trump warmly welcomed Netanyahu and called for resettling Gazans permanently. Religious leaders back Trump's Gaza plan as Netanyahu visited Washington. A coalition of prominent Jewish and Christian leaders threw their support behind Trump's proposal to relocate Gaza's civilian population to Egypt and Jordan, just as Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu arrived for discussions on that plan. Now, Egypt and Jordan have said, go fly a kite, it ain't happening. Jordan does not want more Palestinians because he is a Palestinian state. He's just changed the name to Jordan. He doesn't want more Palestinians because then it is a Hashemite kingdom of Palestinians. And not just that, he knows that these Palestinians in Israel are radicalized beyond description. He doesn't want radicalized Palestinians in his country, and he's willing to go to war to stop that. We'll get to that. Egypt says the same thing. They refuse to take any of these people because the radicalized Palestinians will bring disruption and chaos to their nation. But Israel must sit with the problem. They all have the land, but they are not willing to take the chance And so they'll say, oh, we're with the Palestinians, because they don't want the Palestinians. Trump says the US will take over the Gaza Strip. It came at a joint news conference with Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, saying the Palestinians in Gaza should not go through a process of rebuilding. They have lived a miserable existence there. Early in the afternoon, during the meeting with Netanyahu, Trump said they should resettle permanently in nice homes somewhere else. The US will take over the Strip. We will do a job with it too, Mr. Trump said. We'll own it, and there was his mistake with his wording, and be responsible for dismantling all the dangerous unexploded bombs and other weapons on site, level the site, get rid of destroyed buildings, create an economic development that will supply unlimited jobs and housing for the people of the area. Do a real job, do something different. You just can't go back, he said. If you go back, it's going to end up the same way it has for 100 years. Now, he's correct. He started incorrectly and angered everyone, but he's correct in the rest. And the radicalization and the education of hating Jews and being anti-Semite and wanting their destruction and wanting them wiped out, that is ingrained so deeply that it will continue to be the same. They're not going to put money into turning it into a beautiful utopia. They're going to put money into new tunnels, new weapons, new smuggling, new radicalization, and new terror attacks, because it's so ingrained and built in. They don't want a two-state solution. They want a Palestinian state, the removal of the name of Israel as if it never were. It's in the Bible. Let us remove them from being a name or a memory. Wipe them out. That's the problem. Hamas responds to Trump. Senior Hamas officials call Trump's proposal for Gazans racist and a move that could lead to chaos and tension in the Middle East. Sami Abu Zuri, senior Hamas official, responded to Trump by saying this is a recipe for causing chaos and tension in the region. Whoops, I thought we already had chaos and tension in the region. The Palestinian people in Gaza will not agree to implement these plans. Yes, I agree, they will not agree. Global fury builds over Trump's plan to turn Gaza into Middle East Riviera. Again, choice of words he made here by switching feet in mouth the whole time has caused this to be a focal point in his speech. European countries joined Arab nations in rebuking the shock announcement by Donald Trump that he wants to control Gaza, forcibly displace inhabitants to neighboring countries. Trump's remarks that the US should own Gaza and turn it from a demolition site into the Riviera of the Middle East sparked immediate blowback from Palestinian officials. Annalena Baerbock, Germany's foreign minister, said the proposal to move Palestinians out was unacceptable and against international law. In France, the spokesperson said Paris is fully opposed to the displacement of populations and called Trump's proposal dangerous for regional stability. In the UK, Prime Minister Keir Starmer said Palestinians must be allowed home to rebuild. We will not allow the rights of our people, for which we have struggled for decades and made sacrifices, to be infringed upon, said Mahmoud Abbas in a statement. Have they looked at pictures of what Gaza looks like right now? Have they bothered to Google it or ask AI to show them a picture of what it looks like? It's not even rebuildable. You're going to need major construction equipment, which, by the way, they don't have because they spent that money on missiles, to even move the bricks and the debris out of the way, to even begin preparing the ground to rebuild from scratch with what money, because the money was used for missiles and bombs and training. So you can't. You've got how many refugees coming into all your first world countries because they're fleeing bad situations where they actually had homes and things like that, where it does not look like Gaza looks right now. Anyway, I'm going off on a tangent again. Trump receives backlash after suggesting Palestinians should not return to Gaza. I think they should get a good, fresh, beautiful piece of land. We get some people to put up the money and build it and make it nice and habitable and enjoyable, Trump told reporters. I don't know how they could want to stay, Trump said. when asked about reactions by Palestinian and Arab leaders to his proposal. They are not going to want to go back to Gaza, Trump later said in his proposal. Surprise! Jordan is prepared for war against Israel if Netanyahu attempts to forcibly expel Palestinians into their territory. The stance came in response to Trump's proposal to take over Gaza and permanently resettle Palestinians elsewhere. It's been widely condemned as ethnic cleansing. Jordan's King Abdullah firmly rejected any attempts to annex land or displace Palestinians, emphasizing the need to halt the expansion of Israeli settlements. Israeli settlements in Israeli land, biblically proven to be theirs given them by God. Judea and Samaria, not West Bank, which is what they do to rename it so it sounds like it belongs to someone else when it doesn't. Judea and Samaria belongs to Israel. Read a Bible. Saudi Arabia. Now, Saudi Arabia is the linchpin of all of this. Normalization with Saudi Arabia and Mohammed bin Salman, His Royal Highness, is going to bring that sort of stabilization to the Middle East, bring the other Arab nations into coalition with us, into an acceptance of peace and security, peace and stability with Israel in this boiling pot of tension and emotion and anger. Saudi Arabia said it's committed to a Palestinian state which includes the Gaza Strip. They categorically reject any initiative aimed at displacing Palestinians from their ancestral lands, emphasizing the importance of recognizing the rights and sovereignty of the Palestinian people. I find it interesting the whole time that all these Arab leaders that don't want the Palestinians keep calling Gaza and Samaria and Judea the ancestral lands of the Palestinians. It's not. They never call Israel the ancestral lands of the Jews, even though it is. They just call them settlers. So illegal settlers or squattlers on a land that doesn't belong to them. So then throw your Bible away. I think not. Moreover, Saudi Arabia clarified its diplomatic stance by stating it would not proceed with the establishment of formal diplomatic ties with Israel unless there is concrete progress towards the creation of a viable Palestinian state. The assertion directly contradicting Trump's claims that Riyadh had no significant demands regarding Palestinian statehood. Saudi Arabia clarifies that normalization with Israel is conditioned on a Palestinian state after Trump responded no when asked by Lieseshubby whether the Saudis are expecting a Palestinian state. This firm stance was explicitly affirmed by Crown Prince and Prime Minister Mohammed bin Salman during his address at the opening of the first year of the 9th session of the Shura Council on September 18, 2024 already. In his speech, the Crown Prince made it clear Saudi Arabia will not establish diplomatic relations with Israel unless an independent Palestinian state is established with East Jerusalem as its capital. And therein lies the biggest problem. Even if they agree and say, let us make a Palestinian state involving Gaza and maybe a bigger piece at the bottom of Israel, and there you go, that's yours. But Judea and Samaria are Jewish and ours, and so is Jerusalem. They would not accept it because they want Jerusalem. Jerusalem will be a trembling cup to the nations. Everyone that seeks to move it or heave it away will be cut and destroyed. It will be a stone of stumbling to everybody because they all want Jerusalem. Who does Jerusalem really belong to? God. Netanyahu's response. He says that the Saudis can create a Palestinian state in Saudi Arabia. Prime Minister Netanyahu suggested Saudi Arabia establishes a Palestinian state in its own borders, citing that the kingdom has ample land resources. Fact. He said the Saudis can create a Palestinian state in Saudi Arabia. They have lots of land over there. They don't just have lots of land, they have lots of money. Netanyahu emphasized he would not agree to any arrangement that might compromise Israel's security, particularly the creation of a Palestinian state. Reflecting on past events, he remarked, especially not a Palestinian state after October 7. There was a Palestinian state. It was called Gaza. Gaza, led by Hamas, was a Palestinian state, and look what we got. The biggest massacre since the Holocaust. Rabbi Fish sees Trump's Gaza plan as part of a bigger picture. Now, he's a popular rabbi in Israel, and we've covered him a couple of times on some of his statements that tie into prophecy, and this one was now his take on this whole debacle with Trump's statements about Gaza. Everyone is focused on Gaza, but there's only one part of the end of days agenda, which has the Jews living in Israel prophesied borders. Rabbi Fish said that the Torah explicitly includes Gaza. What Trump is doing is cleaning out Gaza of all the haters of Israel. They cannot be in Israel after Messiah comes. After the Messiah, the only people who can be in the biblical borders of Israel are those who believe he is one and his name is one. This will include Gaza, half of Lebanon, and much of Jordan. And we see we're almost there. Syria has fallen. Lebanon is half gone. Gaza is ripped up. The stage is set for Messiah. But how can the Palestinians be here when we go to greet the Messiah? The Messiah needs someone to take care of this. And in this case, it's Donald Trump. Trump is carrying out the final task needed before Messiah is revealed, according to Rabbi Fish. Interesting. So that's Rabbi Fish's response on the whole thing. So once again, go and Google and look at pictures, and I'll place one on the thumbnail of what Gaza looks like right now. It is a brilliant plan to get the Arab nations surrounding, who have tons of land, and again, I'll show you a piece of that just with Saudi Arabia, to move all these people there to build something amazing for them, even with a coast, and have them there in safety with all the aid you can imagine flowing in to look after them, and everything's better while the rebuilding of Gaza takes place, which is going to take years. If China was in control, probably 2 weeks. But for everybody else, this rebuilding is going to take years. So for years of this rebuilding, you can't have these people living in that situation. The best situation would have been to move them. So it is a great idea, but the way it's been put forward was disastrous switching of feet in mouth, and therein lies the problem. Then the other thing is, everybody's very much about, this is Israel, they need to go, it's, only Israel, and Israel's for the Jews, and blah, blah, blah. I agree, but read your Bible. They are going to divide his land. That is one of the main things, that he gathers all the nations together in judgment against them because they've, number one, divided his land. It is going to happen, whether people like it or not. And that division is coming. And it's going to affect a lot of people, and it's coming fast. The whole world is invested in the division of the land. And the whole world is going to be standing in judgment by God because of this decision they're making right now in front of our faces. Prophecy alive in front of you. So that's my take on that whole situation. Pray for Israel. Pray for the leadership. Pray that God reaches more and more souls on all sides, between the Gazans, the Jews, the Arab nations, everywhere, that more and more people come to a saving grace knowledge of Jesus Christ while there is still time. God bless. Keep watching the Middle East, God's clock, Israel, and Jerusalem, the little minute hand that's just spinning at the moment because we're so close to leaving. Shalom. This is pretty much what most of it looks like in Gaza, where the world is screaming, let them go home. Yeah, this is a glimpse of what home looks like right now.